Ready to dive into the world of AI?
We're tackling data strategy today. It's the real deal behind successful AI, at least according to the folks at Mesh Digital LLC.
Right, they're like the masterminds of data.
They really hit hard on having a rock-solid data strategy.
Yeah, it's the foundation. You can't build anything, especially in AI, without a strong foundation.
It's like, trying to build a house on sand. It's just not going to work out well.
Exactly. And they actually gave this crazy example, this company that blew millions on an AI project, but their data was a mess.
Ugh, a complete disaster waiting to happen. So what happened? Did it completely fall apart?
Totally bombed because their data was full of inaccuracies.
Ouch. That's a painful lesson to learn the hard way.
It underscores how important data cleaning and validation are. Like, before you even think about AI, you got to make sure your data is accurate, relevant, makes sense.
Makes you think, how many companies are out there sitting on this gold mine of data, but they haven't even bothered to clean it up?
Right. It's like having a library full of books, but they're all in different languages you can't understand.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we go about making sense of this data, making it useful?
Data governance. Think of it as like setting the ground rules for your data, a common language.
Okay, so like who has access to it? How can they use it?
Exactly. And how do we keep it safe? All those questions are super important to consider.
So it's not just about having this clean data set. It's about managing it the right way and making sure everyone's on the same page.
Like having traffic signals in your data library. Everything flows smoothly and you don't have any accidents.
I like that. And of course, we have to be able to adapt as we go, especially with AI changing so rapidly.
Absolutely. And Mesh Digital really highlights how data stewards are becoming more important than ever.
It's like they're the librarians, constantly reorganizing and making sure everything is up to date. But it's not just about organization, right? We also need to be able to trust our data.
Trust is everything. Mesh Digital really emphasizes transparency and accountability.
Because would you trust an AI system making decisions with data you knew was iffy? I wouldn't.
Exactly. People need to know how their data is being used and feel good about it. It's about building trust, not just in the tech itself, but in the whole system.
And that trust is key to getting everyone on board with AI.
Yeah.
And speaking of AI, Mesh Digital has this cool concept called the AI flywheel.
It's like this loop of getting better and better, always innovating, all powered by data.
So it's not just about implementing AI and then that's it. It's about creating something that's always learning and evolving.
Exactly. It's about growth and transformation, constantly.
Tell me more about this AI flywheel, because I think our listeners will want to hear all about it.
Well, they break it down into 4 stages, each one building on the last to create this cycle of improvement. It's like there are these gears all working together, to push those AI initiatives forward. And the first gear is all about ideate.
Okay, so brainstorming time. We're coming up with new ideas, figuring out how we can use AI to really change things.
Exactly. But picture this AI as your brainstorming buddy.
Okay, I like where you're going with this.
At this stage, we're using AI to spot those opportunities that we might have missed, like those hidden patterns or those customer needs that nobody else is talking about.
Like having this super-powered magnifying glass, helping us see things we wouldn't have seen before.
Yes. And then we move on to implement, where the real work begins.
Time to roll up our sleeves and put those great ideas into action, building actual AI solutions.
Exactly. Mesh Digital talks a lot about intelligent automation, like taking those tasks that used to take forever and making them faster, more accurate.
And they talk about those AI assistants too, right?
Yeah.
The ones that can have actual conversations.
Exactly, like straight out of a sci-fi movie, but it's happening now. But hold on a second, implementation isn't the end of the road, is it?
Good point. So what happens after?
That's where iterate comes in. This stage reminds us that in the world of AI, we've got to keep moving. We can't just sit back and relax.
So we're talking about constantly improving and refining what we've built based on real-world data and feedback.
Being adaptable, right?
Exactly. It's about learning from our mistakes and our successes and always looking for ways to improve. And all of this leads to the grand finale, innovate.
This is where things get really exciting.
Right. This stage is where we take all those lessons, all those efficiencies, and create something truly groundbreaking.
We're talking completely new business models, innovative products and services, maybe even tapping into markets nobody's thought of before.
Exactly. It's like this ripple effect where AI drives these incredible innovations that can transform whole industries.
It's a powerful concept, but we have to be realistic too, right? What about the potential downsides, the limitations of AI?
And Mesh Digital talks about that too. They're not afraid to point out the potential pitfalls, particularly in risk management, which can be a really tricky area.
So they acknowledge that AI isn't some kind of magic solution. It has weaknesses, especially when we're talking about human judgment. For sure. They highlight that AI lacks emotional intelligence, which is huge.
Because as good as AI is at analyzing data and spotting patterns, it still can't really understand human emotions, ethics, and those gray areas that are so important in risk management.
Precisely. It all goes back to that saying, AI can't replace humans, but humans with AI, well, that's a different story.
It's about finding that perfect balance, making sure AI is used ethically and responsibly. But how do we do that? How do we make sure that partnership stays balanced, especially in areas like risk assessment where the stakes are so high?
That's where the 5 pillars of responsible training data management come in. Think of them as the guiding principles to ensure the data we're feeding our AI is, solid, unbiased, and aligns with our values.
Sounds like a pretty good recipe for ethical AI. So break it down for us. What are these pillars and how do they help us build AI we can trust?
The first pillar is all about data quality and curation. Remember that analogy about building a house on a solid foundation? Same deal here. The better your data, the better your AI's output will be.
So we're saying garbage in, garbage out, right? Feed your AI bad data and you're going to get bad results.
Exactly. And sometimes those bad results, well, they can be pretty serious.
It's not just about getting the wrong answer. It's about the potential harm that can happen if AI is making decisions based on flawed information.
Think about it, an AI system that's supposed to be evaluating loan applications, but it's trained on biased data.
Oh, wow. That could lead to some really unfair outcomes.
Absolutely. It could perpetuate those existing inequalities we see, instead of helping to level the playing field.
That's a powerful example. It really highlights the importance of getting that data right from the start.
And that's where that second pillar comes in. Bias mitigation. We got to make sure we're correcting for those blind spots, those inherent biases that might exist in the data.
So it's like we're calibrating our AI compass, making sure it's pointing us in the right direction. But how do we do that in practice? How do we actually mitigate bias in data?
Mesh Digital talks about a few ways to tackle it. One is bias audits. It's basically like it sounds, you go in and look for those hidden biases in your data sets.
So you're actively searching for and then addressing any imbalances or biases that you find.
Exactly. And then there's data augmentation, which is adding more data points, more diverse data to create a more balanced training ground for your AI.
Making sure the AI is exposed to a wider range of perspectives and experiences, which makes it less likely to develop those harmful biases.
Exactly. But even if you have this perfectly clean, unbiased data, we can't forget about security.
Right, especially with all the data breaches we've been seeing. Data security is a huge concern these days.
For sure. And that's where the third pillar comes in, data privacy and security. This one's non-negotiable. Mesh Digital stresses how important it is to follow those data protection regulations.
So things like GDPR, those regulations are there for a reason, right?
Absolutely. They also talk about having strong security protocols, like who has access to the data, making sure it's encrypted, stored securely, the whole 9 yards. We have to protect that data.
It's like building a fortress around your data, keeping it safe from those who shouldn't have access to it. But it's not just about keeping data safe, it's also about making sure it's being used ethically.
You got it. And that leads us to the fourth pillar, which is all about ethical and regulatory compliance.
Okay, so it sounds like it's not enough to just follow the rules. We also need to make sure we're using AI in a way that aligns with our values.
You got it. Mesh Digital emphasizes building a culture of ethical AI development. We're talking about everything. Ethical guidelines for AI projects, risk assessments, transparency, and accountability.
So it's about embedding those ethical considerations into every stage of AI development. But this field is changing so rapidly. How can we ensure that these frameworks we're building are still relevant in the years to come?
And that's where that fifth and final pillar comes in. Continuous monitoring and improvement. Mesh Digital stresses that ethical AI isn't a finish line, it's a journey.
It's about constantly evaluating, adapting, making sure our AI systems are still doing what we intended them to do and doing it in a responsible way.
Exactly. We have to stay vigilant, monitor for those unintended consequences, incorporate new information, and be willing to adapt our approach as AI evolves.
It's like we're holding up a mirror to our AI, making sure it reflects our values and that it's still serving humanity in the way that we intended.
I like that. It emphasizes that we don't have all the answers right now, and that's okay.
It's about being open to learning and growing as AI technology continues to advance. And you know what? This actually brings us back to Mesh Digital's adaptive AI framework.
Right. It's all about building AI systems that are powerful, but they're also flexible. They can change and grow with us.
As we delve deeper into the world of AI, it's clear that a solid data strategy isn't just some optional add-on, it is the foundation upon which everything else is built. And it's not just about technical prowess, it's about ethical responsibility.
We got to make sure that as we unlock the potential of AI, we're using it to benefit everyone, that we're building a future where AI is a force for good in the world.
It's a future I'm excited to be a part of. And on that note, we'll leave our listeners with that thought. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking those tough questions, and keep diving deep.